Hello and welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. I'm your host, Fiona Kane. I've got another guest today. Her name is Steph Pinto. Hi, Steph.
Hey, Fiona, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you today?
I'm good. Kids are at school, so it's good.
Yeah, the school holidays are over. I have the husband that goes back to school. Everyone else has the kids that go back to school because my husband's a school teacher.
Nice.
So school holidays is different in my house, the same as it is different in your house, just in different ways. So for those who don't know you, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Okay, so Stephanie Pinto, and I'm here in Sydney as well, just like you. And I have 2 kids and a husband, and my work is emotional intelligence. Anything and everything to do with emotional intelligence, I love. My background actually is as a pediatric speech pathologist, so I kind of have that therapist background, and obviously worked with kids for a long time, and really got to understand and kind of get them, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But then, long story short, I sort of discovered emotional intelligence online, as you do, and I thought, what is this like weird stuff that this person is posting? And I was just reading a few of what they were posting, little clips and articles and stuff, and I pretty quickly became fascinated. So now I've moved out of obviously being a therapist into an emotional intelligence coach and consultant. I will speak internationally at conferences and train teams and organizations. And I wrote a book that came out last year called From Chaos to Connection. And that's how parenting with emotional intelligence raises kind, confident, resilient kids. And so, anything to do with emotional intelligence, I'll kind of write about it, teach about it, speak about it.
Yes.
And then a smaller portion of my work, but I love it, is that I do anxiety therapy for kids and teens as well, because that was my story as a kid. So, and I didn't have anything, nothing like what we have now back then 20 years ago. So that's kind of a bit about me and what I do.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And congratulations, the book and the international conferences and things like that. I've been watching your career for a little while, and it's been really great to see you thrive and see your message get across. So congratulations on how you've come so far, and I imagine you're going to be going a lot further than this.
Yeah, I hope so. But it's wild. Like if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have. That's kind of when I started this. Actually, I would have said, no way would I ever be able to do half the stuff I do. I think it's really helped my confidence and my mindset and how resilient I am too. So that's why I love it.
And really, it's just do the next thing, then do the next thing, and then do the next thing. Essentially that's how you get there. If you get anywhere, how you get there, you just take the next step, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So for those who maybe haven't heard of it or have heard of it but think it's just some weird concept, what is emotional intelligence?
Okay, so I think sometimes people believe, this is what I believed initially. I thought, okay, emotional intelligence is being smart with your emotions. Got it. And technically at the time, I was probably the world's most emotionally unintelligent person. Not because I didn't have the kind of personality style that would like erupt and get really angry and lash out. I went the other way. I went inward. I shut down. I was a people pleaser. I didn't speak up and things like that. And I mentioned a bit about anxiety. So that was still, though, me not being smart with my emotions. I didn't have a handle on them. I didn't understand them. I was a really good shover, and I shoved them down. And that kind of worked well for me until it didn't. If we go through the kind of more in-depth explanation of emotional intelligence, it's the ability to be aware of your own emotions and those of others in the moment, and to use that information to guide your actions, make good decisions, and adjust your behavior. So there's a whole lot in there, but like the pieces that I kind of pick out is that, yes, I need to have the awareness of and recognize the emotions building in my body when something is happening and I'm getting frustrated or feeling anxious. But I also actually have to have this like situational awareness of, let's say it's my kids or it's my husband or it's someone at work, I don't know. I have to understand that this is a huge thing that was like a game changer for me, to understand that other people's emotions and experiences were as true for them as mine are for me. That like blew my mind, because I was like, no, you're being ridiculous. This is what we should be doing. Like, we agreed, and why are you making such a big deal? And then I realized, oh my God, like how frustrating is it to have your emotions invalidated by someone? So yeah, it's kind of that two-way awareness and understanding, and using that information, like I said, using that information to actually make good decisions, to adjust yourself and your behavior in a conversation or an interaction. This has probably saved my marriage. Like, my husband and I joke about that, but it probably has, because we're very different. We have different backgrounds. And I think stuff like day to day at home with my kids, on the whole, it's pretty smooth. Yes, they have big emotions and they, argue and stuff, but very rarely does it end up in like a power struggle and a yelling match. Like, that's just not, and I'm not perfect, but yeah.
No, I am. I don't know about you. I can't understand why you're not. We're all so perfect. Yeah, anyone who watches or listens to this knows that I'm far from that. I'm quite honest, but I would say it saved my marriage as well. And I'm the opposite to you. I'm not really a shover down. I'm more of a shover in your face.
But I love how you, like, I've spoken to you and I've seen, I follow you online and things like that. But I love that you are not afraid to speak your truth and give your opinion and say what you think matters or what's important. Like, without, I would have, and I'm coming out, like, I'm a recovering, people pleaser, as they say. The fear and the anxiety of like, well, what will they think of me? And like, will they hate me or unfollow? Like, that just, everyone is different, but I
do
admire
think
that.
of that, and I do kind of go, oh God, people are going to hate me the more things I say. But at the same time, my need to get it out is stronger than my concern about what will happen, and it always has been, and it's getting stronger and stronger as I get older. So I'm going to put more and more people offside as I get becoming one of those, menopausal ladies who just says what you think.
Yeah, I actually really admire that. I haven't told you, but like, I do. I'm like, wow, I wish I could find some of that. Sometimes I can, but some of that fire to be like, hey, no, like, that's not okay, or that's wrong, or anyway. So
I think you are finding it, because the fact that you're even talking about emotional intelligence and working with these issues, you are finding it. And I know that you have told me that you've had some pushback around it. So I understand that you're probably standing up more than what you think you are.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So I have some questions then. So look, I'm a Gen Xer. So I grew up in the time where it's like, shut up and stop crying, because I'll give you something real to cry about in a minute if you don't stop crying.
Yeah.
I also, it was a time where, essentially it's just like kids should be seen and not heard, and you should just, go away and deal with it somewhere else. It's not my problem. So that's what I grew up with. And also just the, we don't have strong emotions. Let's not have strong emotions. We just don't do that. That's not appropriate. And so I kind of grew up with I kind of learned to emotionally eat at quite a young age, because that was a way of managing my emotions and pushing them down and making myself feel better. And that has obviously been a challenge that I've had throughout my life, and that's affected my health and all sorts of things, and other podcasts, whatever. So that's sort of, I grew up in that era. Now, at the other end of things, because I think sometimes things go too far. What I see at the moment is you've got uni students who are sort of need a safe space, and they, and it's all about their hurty feelings, and everything's about their feelings. And while I think feelings are really important, and from an emotional intelligence point of view, obviously everything you said about being able to look at a situation and kind of make a sensible judgment about it based on all of the information and have a sensible response. Absolutely. But on the other hand, everyone's emotions being the most important thing, and everyone should change everything for their emotion. It's gone a bit too far for me. So I think there's got to be a balance in there somewhere. But so what is it? You said that you are teaching in regards to helping people raise children, like who kids who can, like, we were pretty robust, my generation, right? And I see a generation of not so robust, and I feel like this emotional intelligence thing, hopefully there's a middle ground somewhere where there's robustness, but also not kind of not as bad as it was when I was younger. So tell me a bit about that, the middle ground
Yes.
with this, and what your work hopes to
Okay.
achieve and achieves.
Yeah, I love that. And I think emotional intelligence actually is that middle ground. Um, a lot of people, at least in my circles, online mostly, will have this idea that emotional intelligence means we're sitting down talking about our feelings, we're helping our kids to like sit with them and, really unpack them. And this is erring in the side of like permissive parenting, where this, as you said, emotions are like the big, this is all we do. And I'm like, no, that's unproductive. That's not, it's not realistic. It's not how the world works. And I think that's more, if we think of like, I don't know why I get this kind of concept or this metaphor of a river bank, like a river, and you got two river banks, one on either side. If we are that old style, which now is, well, yes, I'll say respectfully, like it's outdated. It's not underpinned by the neuroscience and the research and what we know about what builds resilient kids. As you said, I think, mentioned emotional overeating. There's lots of things that develop from the too harsh and strict view of seeing emotions, like put them away behind closed doors. I don't want to see them. Like, you're weak if you've got those.
Yeah.
So we know that's detrimental, but also on the other side of the riverbank, too permissive, too soft, too, yes, okay, you're worried about school. Okay, let's not go today. Like, whoa, that's unhelpful.
And only ever saying yes to children. Oh, they've never heard no. They get to 25 and they've still never heard the word no.
Yeah. And I wonder, I haven't looked into this enough, but I wonder if just with lots of things over decades, like generations and things, we swing from one to the other with lots of different things in the world, in life, I think.
Yeah,
so
yeah, we
anyway,
swing against, like we go against what our parents did.
yeah,
So Gen X kids like me were like, well, our parents, we were out till the end of the day, don't come home till the street lamps come on and that
yeah,
kind of thing. And we kind of go, well, that wasn't right. And so then, we've kind of swung
yeah,
too far
yeah.
the other way, many of us anyway. And look, I'm not a parent, so it's really easy for me picking on parents. It's just so easy from my little comfortable spot here where I haven't had to do it. So I will just acknowledge that as well.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, you're bringing up a really good point, and it's, if we're looking at what I say no, quote unquote, no works. This is just what the last, maybe even like 20 years of research has shown us. If we think about, the 90s was called the decade of the brain because we had access to brain scans, MRIs, and we really started to learn, when we do these things repetitively, the brain develops in this way and vice versa. So basically the general consensus is, and what the research shows, is that if we are attuned to and responsive to our kids' emotions, rather than shoving them down and stuffing them, then they will grow up on the whole to be resilient, and successful. It's not to say, like I said, that we sit down and we kumbaya and we're talking about our emotions, but we don't have to beat them out of our kids, if that makes sense, and shame them, because as you know, there are implications for that. And I was just watching something the other day, an Australian research looking at rates of anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide, and more. Rates are just increasing. So there's something that we haven't been doing right, if that makes sense. Obviously there's, COVID and lots of other contributing factors, but basically we need help dealing with our emotions. And if we don't have the tools, then things don't go right. We're not logical robot kind of creatures. We are built on emotion, and I think we need to honor them and listen to them and then move through them. Like, I talk to parents a lot and educators about help, like, just for ourselves, no, not even our kids, but can we learn to recognize, accept, honor, and value them, listen to them because they're probably telling us a really important message.
Yeah.
And then we can process and release them, move on with our day. Like, that's it, that's done, right?
Yeah. And essentially it's data, right? So it's learning how to identify emotions and their data. The same as I always talk about data, whether it be I've got a pain in my foot or whether it be I feel sad or whatever in between, whether it's an emotional or physical, but it's information, it's data. And it's about what you do with that. So, what you're talking about is being able to identify it and then, like you said, moving through it, understanding what it is and just figuring out what the next step is. But it's not sort of then I'm going to spend forever sitting in this place of, I'm in this emotion. The whole world's got to come to my rescue because I'm feeling whatever it is.
Yeah, actually something that popped in my mind as you were saying that, Fiona, and I think this is really helpful, is that if we can get out of the whole, we learned a lot of unhelpful and basically just wrong lessons about emotions as kids. We learned that they were wrong, embarrassing, bad, shameful, sign of
Have
weakness.
them. Yeah. You're just not
Something
allowed
to,
to have them, and you're not
yeah,
allowed
yeah,
to
yeah.
have them in public, and you're not allowed to have them around me because I don't know how to deal with my emotions. So the last thing I want you to do is have big emotions around me because I don't know. I've never been allowed to have mine. Why should you
Mhm.
have yours? That was pretty
Yeah,
much it.
exactly. You hit the nail on the head. And so I think if we just can move away from that and into not that, not swinging too far the other way. Okay, we need to check in all the time with our emotions. Sometimes we just need to get things done. We just need to get in the car. We need to get to school, or we need to finish this project for work, whatever it is. But can we start maybe understanding that emotions are as much a part of being human as having a nose or an elbow or a brain,
Mm.
just normal, natural parts of our humanity? Let's learn to understand them and work with them. Like, that's it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, as simple as that. Yeah, and the reason, respectfully, you would understand this. The reason I'm pushing back on this is because first of all, these are my questions, but secondly, these are the questions that I know a lot of people would be asking, and a lot of what people think about when they think of this is, I won't go into the politics of it, but a lot of stuff going on in the world that isn't necessarily so healthy. And I think it's easy to get this confused with that, which is why I just wanted to drill down and talk about, what it actually really means and what it's about.
Yeah. Actually, can I mention then, because that's a good point.
So,
I was talking about resilience the other day. It was on a different interview, and the theme was resilience, like in ourselves, but in our kids too.
mm,
And the question was, does raising emotionally intelligent kids, or talking about emotions and things like that, is that making them resilient or weak snowflakes? And I was like, this is me rubbing my hands together. I was like, here we go. And I said, imagine a child who learns how to understand and manage their anger,
mm,
understand and manage frustration or anxiety, or disappointment of a breakup or of a bad score on a test, or you didn't get that job you really wanted. Like, imagine when we're able to understand, like, really process and use some coping strategies to move past that emotion, like listen to what it's teaching us, as you said,
mm.
and then move out the other side, making good decisions or adjusting our behavior. That is resilience. It's
Yes,
not staying stuck in the little pit. It's
yes,
the ability of, this has gone wrong. I feel really awful about it. I'm so mad about it.
mm,
What do I need to do now? Like, what is this telling me? I should have said no when I said yes. I should
yes,
not let that person into my life anymore, or whatever it is. But then, like, imagine that the strength of that person being able to handle, in a what's the word? The adversities that are going to happen, unavoidable adversities in life.
mm,
Like I said, jobs, marriages break down, like losing kids, like lots of stuff.
mm.
Being able to understand it and manage it and move through the other side, I'm like, that's resilience.
Yes, it
It's the
is.
ability to move through things, because things
Yeah.
are going to happen.
And that's true because I know that in my generation that I've seen what has happened to a lot of people around me who kind of did that just push it all down. So let's just push it all down thing. That works until it doesn't.
Mm,
And some of those people who are in older, like sort of around my age or earlier, have started to have health problems or mental health problems or, just really big challenges. And everything kind of unravels suddenly because they can't hold it down anymore, and then they've got a lot to deal with. So I do acknowledge that a better way is actually it's acknowledging the emotions, and as long as what you do with them is exactly what you said, you learn how to identify it. It's data, it's information. What did I learn? What do I need to do now? How can I reframe things? That kind of thing. So if it's a process that you can use to move through something, to have a learning, to have to learn and to move forward, then
mhm.
that's brilliant.
Can I share, just because you were mentioning about some of the challenges of like shoving it down, that it kind of works until it doesn't.
Yes.
I had a mum come into one of my programs, or she wanted to come into one of my programs. This is like 2 years ago, and I have never ever forgotten this, because it just, like, it rattled me. I had to like close my laptop, go out, and just like take some deep breaths, because I was just really, whew. Um, she wanted to come into the program. She was struggling with one of her three children and their big emotions and his challenging behavior. And she said, but my husband, like, we're out on the farm, we're pretty Aussie. Like, I love this stuff, but my husband's really not, he's not into it. But I would love him to come along and like watch some of the videos. And I said, look, I'll do a call with him. I'll do a phone call or a Zoom, whatever. Anyway, it ended up being a phone call because he was literally out on the farm, somewhere in like rural New South Wales. And I want to say, like, a lovely guy. He swore like a farmer, but I just understood that was how, that's the culture.
Yes.
But he was really against everything that I was trying to explain about, this is why we have to understand why your son is having these big emotions, like what's going on with him, and really meet him where he's at, right? Rather than what the father was usually used to do, which was like threatening and punishments and stuff like that. And the father said, you know what? I don't really want to hear about all this emotional stuff. Like, I don't have time. We're on the farm. The boys need to be working on the farm. Like, that's that. If they're not, going to be part of it, I kind of don't care. He said, I have bigger things on my plate, not just the farm. In the last, I can't remember how many years. I think he said 2 or 3 years. He said, in the last 2 or 3 years, I've had 3 of my farmer mates, he used a different word, but end their own lives because of the stress and maybe the fear of, losing farms and money, finances, like all of that stuff. Like, just that was what he was getting at.
Yes.
And he didn't say it like that, but essentially that was what happened. He'd lost 3 of his mates in the last few years. And I was like gobsmacked. Like, this was me a couple of years ago, and I just thought, oh my God, like, how do I respond to that? But in my, like, I've got a bit of like, I'm buzzing as I tell the story because I still remember it so raw. And I just remember thinking, what has to go on, or what has to go so far wrong that men, and this is not just men, it's women, but cannot tolerate that level of stress, emotion, like fear, anxiety, or depression, like what's underneath all of these challenges and these mental health challenges, like to go that far, like that's the inability to understand and work through stresses and adversity and the emotion that comes with that.
Yes.
And they obviously had not the right coping skills or the tools, like, to get through it. And I couldn't obviously explain that in the phone call, and he wouldn't have heard it anyway. But I just thought, oh my God, like he obviously doesn't see the connection between, there's so many, I know it's a sweeping generalization, but so many men out there who are just, they haven't been taught how to deal with their emotions, or they've been taught to shove it down and get on the farm and do your work.
Yeah. And in his defense, I see where he's coming from. I could see why he feels so overwhelmed with all of that stuff. The stuff that, that the women are talking about seems like, weirdo kind of soft stuff that, so I could understand why he didn't recognize it. And if you've got all of that stuff on your mind, that's the thing too. It's like, and it's not even a situation of, and I know that you're not saying this either, but it's not a situation of that, he was somehow stupid or that men or people in that situation aren't able to understand at all. It's more just that when you're in it, and when you're really in it, and when you're up to here in life, man, woman, whoever you are, you just cannot see the forest for the trees, and you just can't, so you can't take in information. And even if you go back to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what is it? It's like, what is it? Food, water, shelter, something along those lines. You've got to feel safe. And if you can't feel safe, you can't really develop in a spiritual way or develop really an emotional way. So he's clearly not feeling very safe, and he's probably got a really good reason for it as well. So I totally get that, but I also get you kind of going, oh my God, how can he not, wow, you can't, and that's really tough. And sometimes it's the people that really need the help that aren't the ones that get it, or they don't get it at that time. But let's just hope over time things have changed for him. Who knows? Sometimes you don't end up working with that person, but sometimes there's a seed somewhere that happens in that time, and you hear later some good stories out of those things as well, where the person has. I've had a situation where I've got a lot of my clients are women, and their husbands, one of them in particular used to call me the hoodoo guru. You're going to see the hoodoo guru. I like that band, so it's like there's worse things to be called. But they have funny names for me and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty full on though, and it's a weird paradox, isn't it? That what you're offering is what could have helped
Yeah.
But when you're in that, and and obviously it couldn't have helped with the immediate of, maybe he was about to lose his farm and all things going on. So obviously it
Mm.
couldn't have directly helped with that, but it could have helped with a lot of the underlying issues that you were talking about. That is
Mm.
why they're in that situation in the first place.
I get that this is really challenging a lot of people's blueprint of how they were raised,
Yes.
and all those moments, like, I don't know, millions of moments where we learned or were taught, like I said, not to have those emotions, or to put it away, or to stop being a drama queen, or to
Mm.
stop being ridiculous. We learned.
Yeah.
So it's really, yeah, it's challenging that programming, I want to say, because it feels it feels wrong. It
Yes.
feels like new age and stuff. And I'm like, I get that. Like, this is why I rest a lot on the research and what that says, and
Yeah.
of child development, neuroscience and psychology and stuff like that, because even for me, like, I have a health science degree in speech pathology, so that makes me feel better, because it was drilled into me to use evidence-based practice. So
Yes.
I was like, okay, I can't really get on board unless I know. And now there's oodles. Like, one of the books behind me is it's called Permission to Feel by Professor Mark Brackett, and he is the founding director of Yale University's Center for Emotional Intelligence.
Mm.
So in one of the most prestigious universities in the States, there's a whole center dedicated towards the research and development of emotional intelligence for kids, for adults, in the workplace, in teams, organizations, everything. And not one shred of evidence shows that, like, when done right, when trained and learning emotional intelligence, that you're going to end up being this kind of soft snowflake, and like, it's all really, really positive outcomes. So that makes me go, okay, like, I'm on the right track.
Yes, yeah. And, the other thing too, it's we're all learning in all of these things. So the more we learn, the more we adjust things, or, this bit was good, that bit didn't work out, whatever it is. So it's all about learning as you go along, and looking at the evidence, and looking at what's happening in front of you, and what, not ignoring when things,
Mm.
sometimes we get caught up in, this is the right way, and then we don't look at what's in front of us and what is working, what's not working. So it's also looking at what works. But this, yeah, so far as I can see, this seems to be a much better strategy than the one than before. Look, the other thing too, in regards to something else that I've seen a lot of, I remember I worked in a health food store years ago, and I had a woman come in, and I feel for her. She had lots of kids, and I don't even know what that's like. So it's
Mm.
really awful. But she had a little boy with her, and what I see happen a lot in families is children get labelled. That's the good one, that's the bad one, that's like, we all got labelled as whatever. That's a funny one, that's a smart one, whatever it is. And I think that's really unfortunate, because I think that we often then live into that role, whatever the role is. But she had the naughty one with her, and she was telling me about how he's got ADD, this, that, blah, 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 and he can't control himself and whatever. And he's going, Mom, 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 Mom. And she's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. He's going, Mom, Mom, Mom. And he was telling her he needed to go to the toilet, right?
Mhm.
And this went on for like quite a long time. And he was only a small child. I don't know, I can't remember now, but six, maybe 8, but probably 6. And Mum, 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 Mum. And she's like, go away, stop being naughty. Like, he was just like, oh, you're being naughty.
Mm.
And then eventually he soiled his pants and the floor. Oh,
Oh,
and number twos, that wasn't pleasant, right?
no. Mm.
But then that was her evidence for why he's bad.
Mm.
And I
Well,
was, and I was, oh, my brain was just about to explode, because I was just thinking, oh my God, you've just in front of him gone on and on and on about how bad he is, and how he can't concentrate, can't do it. So you're teaching him that he's bad and that he
yeah.
can't do all these things and whatever. You've totally just not listened to him for the last however many minutes, where he's been trying to clearly communicate to you that he needs to go to the toilet. And now he's done this thing, and you're going to shame him and use it as a confirmation of what a bad child he is.
Yeah.
And not only that, but God, I could have just imagined she'll be telling that story everywhere about she's the victim and how the child's so terrible. So the
Mm.
child will get shamed everywhere forever about that story. I mean, he's probably an adult now. It's so long ago. But,
Mm.
what are your thoughts around that, around the sort of like when we label children as, we put them in different roles, and kind of, in my opinion, I think so often really cements them in a certain role for life.
Yeah. Yeah, it can. And I have another parent of mine came to mind where she had three children, and one was the naughty one, and I totally understand that. like when you're labeled with something, it's almost like a cage, and it becomes your identity. And we know that the words that we speak to our kids become their inner voice. So that happened to me. I'm sure that happened to a lot of other people. And it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yes, that's understandable. But I think, as we were talking before about the farmer story, and you made a really good point that you can see how he kind of got to that space. Probably he was in his 50s, I want to say. So, you can imagine farmer family and back in the sort of 70s, 80s anyway. And I think with this parent, or, without knowing lots, I just think what must have led to, like, how the challenges that this parent must have endured with not knowing how to understand her kid, not knowing how to deal with his maybe big emotions, or, the anger, or the lashing out, or the constant, attention seeking, or whatever. Like, I can just see, if I had her paradigms, if I had her beliefs, if I had her experiences, maybe I would have responded or reacted in the same way, which is not the right way. Like, I'm not saying that, but it kind of makes you think, well, people are doing, I think this is for kids and this is for adults. People are doing the best that they can with the knowledge they have, with the level of consciousness that they're at, with the circumstances they're in. Like, most of us really are doing what we can. And sometimes it is full on struggle street, especially when we have kids with different challenges, different needs, neurodivergent needs, and things like that. And our world, oh my gosh, our world is not set up for neurodivergent kids. It's not set up by them. It's set up by neurotypical people.
I only saw a snapshot of her life, so I know it feels very judgmental. But it's just showing you an example of where we can go wrong. And like you said, though, I don't believe, I think for the most part, most parents are doing the best they can, and none of it's intentional. They just, if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the tools, and no one did it for you, and you don't learn, and then you just do the same thing with your kids, sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just kind of we repeat the cycle, and and it takes one person in one kind of level of a generation, I think, to just do things differently and to fathom that things could be done differently. Maybe I can listen to my kids. Maybe I can be more respectful of my kids and listen to when they need something. Doesn't mean I have to give it to them every time, but I'm letting them say, I want this, or I need that, or I don't want to do that, or I need more time.
Yes.
I think a lot of the time, I hate to say, we treat kids like second-class citizens, and what they say doesn't matter, and their opinion, it doesn't matter. It's not important. We have the deadlines. We know what needs to be done. We have all the plans for the day. But I'm just wondering whether we could show the same level of respect to kids and their emotions, because they've got big emotions. Like, kids are a ball of emotion, let's face it. But can we respect them, and even in just the way that we talk to them? Like, I would never say to my husband, can you go get my charger? And he's like, oh, I don't know where it is. I don't care. I said, go get it. Or just because I said so, or don't question me. Like, there are things that we say to our kids that, oh my God, I would never say to my husband. And if he said to me, I'd be like, what the hell, babe?
And of course, it doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, and it doesn't mean you're not the parent. It's not that at all. It's just respecting that is also another person. That's all.
Yeah. We still get to make the decisions at the end of the day.
I'm aware of time, but just quickly before you go, could you maybe give me just a little bit of an example of what emotional intelligent parenting might look like? So, say you do have a child that sort of is having a meltdown. Can you give me maybe just a little bit of an example of just the way you'd respond to that, rather than, well, in my day it was shouting and that kind of thing. So how would you deal with something like that?
Well, I can give you an example from this morning, because we had a somewhat stressful morning because my son wanted to go in the car to school, which we usually do, and my daughter wanted to ride her bike. And it's down to me, because my husband wasn't, he's getting ready for work and everything, so he couldn't take them.
Yes.
And so my son started to get and he's 10. So this is not like a 2-year-old or a toddler. And so this is the other thing. I think parents think, oh my God, it's okay for babies to cry. maybe it's okay for toddlers to cry, but at some stage or at some age, we make this decision that kids shouldn't cry when they're upset or when they're really mad or frustrated about something. They should be able to hold it together.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's by the by. But he was getting more and more upset, and I was trying to reason with him and say, look, yesterday you did get to ride your bike, because he did, which was out of the blue. And I said, today, your sister wants to ride. I know you don't want to, but like, one day, let's make this fair kind of thing.
Mm.
And he said, no. I said, look, you can ask your dad if he has time. He didn't. So, in terms of like emotionally intelligent parenting, one, I was trying to keep myself cool and calm as possible without me flipping my lid, because it's inconvenient. Like, we had 15 minutes to get to school, just enough time to ride and obviously enough time to drive. So I was keeping myself cool and noticing that I was getting a little bit frustrated with him. But I did my absolute best not to, shame him and be like, you're so selfish, you can't even let your sister for once ride. Yesterday you wrote. So I didn't do that, but I was trying to. I often just think, how would I disagree or resolve this conflict with another adult? So I was trying to say my piece. I was listening to him. He was like, but I just don't want to ride today. And I was like, oh, so the emotions were running high for him. And in the end, because I thought, well, it's not fair for you to get kind of what you want, I guess. 2 days in a row, I'm one parent. I've got to split my decisions fairly. And so we stuck with, like, this was my boundary. We're going to walk. I'm going to walk and you can ride or you can walk with me. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to flip and go, okay, fine, and let my boundaries go and be like, fine, you win because you're so emotional upset. I was like, I'm going to keep it fair. I've agreed to walk and ride, my daughter will ride her bike. And you're allowed to be upset with that. You're allowed to be disappointed. You're allowed to be really mad at me because you're not getting what you want. It doesn't mean I'm going to change my decision just to placate you or to avoid the yelling and the tears. And I don't want, you're so unfair. So I was allowing him, like, this is the other thing I think we don't, for so many of us, it's really hard to tolerate these loud, strong, messy emotions from our kids because it wasn't tolerated in us. So that's our blueprint. So I had to kind of, it's easier now, but for a long time I had to work against that feeling of like, shh, you're too loud. Like, stop it. I don't care. Just get in the car, Yeah. So, so that was me kind of navigating. And he was upset and kind of like halfway to school, but he was riding and he was still a bit argumentative. And I was just like, I know now, because I learned, a little bit about the nervous system and fight or flight, to just let it go when he's in that level of fight, flight, kind of, he's so dysregulated that none of the logic is going to work for him. He'll still find, and he did. He still found, but remember last week, so he's, you know what I mean. So I just said, I know you're unhappy, but we're walking and we're riding, and so we got there.
Acknowledge the person's feelings. You stay calm. You let them have their feelings, but you still make whatever the decision is you need to make. And sometimes that might be going with what they've said. Sometimes that might not be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'm aware we're running out of time now. There's so much more we could talk about. I might have to book you in another time. If people want to get in contact with you, obviously I'll put your details in the show notes. But what's the best place for them to contact you?
Probably a couple of places. The easy one is my website, because it's just my name. So that's stephaniepinto.com. Yes. I also have a community on Facebook called Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids. And so
Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids. It's a Facebook group.
Yes. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that's a great place to be. And if you do listen to, or if you like to listen to lots of different podcasts, because I know obviously people are here listening to yours, then mine is called Emotionally Intelligent Parenting. So that
Emotionally Intelligent Parenting. And I'll put links in the show notes as well. And your book again, just before we go?
Yes, my book is called From Chaos to Connection. So that's a good one.
From Chaos to Connection. All right. So I'll put all the links in the show notes as well. And just quickly before we go, because I never I hate it when people talk down to men, and the intention of this wasn't to do that. And I don't think we have. There is, I'll find it and put a link in. I can't remember now, but a rapper put a song out last year, and it was about how he sat in the driveway crying when he got home before he could come in and face his family. And I think it's just, let's acknowledge that men are going through a lot in this world, and it's really tough as well. And they're doing the best that they can. And we we're not right about everything. They're not right about everything. We can work together. But anyway, I'm going to put the link to that song because I think that men are everyone's doing it tough in different ways, and men have a particular tough time at the moment in the world. So I will put the link in because I can't remember the singer's name. Anyway, look, thank you so much, Steph. I really appreciated having you here today, and thanks so much for your valuable time.
Thank you. I want to say a massive thank you because I know that you were so flexible as well with me having to kind of change things a couple of times and you were so understanding. So I'm very grateful to be on and to be here. And I love everything you do. I just think your stories and your shared experience from probably the little amount that I know that you share with people is really, really valuable. So thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone who's listening at home and or watching on YouTube or Rumble. Please like and subscribe and share and all that jazz. And we're going to keep having real conversations about things that matter. See you next week. Bye.